You're listening to the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast, a place for sex addicts to share their experiences of recovery, to help break the stigma, myths, and misconceptions of sex addiction. This podcast may contain topics of sexuality, sexual trauma, dysfunction, or other things that may be triggering, so listener discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome to the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast. My name is Jason, I'm a sex addict, and I will be your podcast host for today. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to episode number 30 of the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast. In this episode, I'm excited to be sharing the conversation that I had with Tim R. from the UK. I'm so grateful that he was willing to stay up super late to accommodate the recording time slot that I had available. But yeah, I'm grateful that he reached out through the email and asked to be a guest on the podcast. Before getting to that conversation, I wanted to do a little reading, something that I found in Voices of Recovery this week. This comes from September 6th, which is on page 250. Skipping a few paragraphs, this is talking about breaking out of isolation and being at an SAA convention. One of the speakers shared the breakdown of his life and eventually surrender. He said that he couldn't believe that people would still like him after hearing his story. I could connect with his pain and shame, and I was not embarrassed to cry. Neither were other addicts in the room. During the telling of that story, all my anxieties and worries faded, and I felt the power of the program and my higher power coming through that speaker. I sometimes forget the joy and energy I get from connecting with my fellow addicts. I take back my will and end up alone, battling with addiction. My greatest moments have been with other addicts, sharing openly and being vulnerable. Staying connected with others and sharing intimately is the only way I can continue my spiritual journey of recovery. It is truly a gift from God. This reading really spoke to me after having conversation with many different addicts sharing their stories. Some people, like Tim here, I just met for the first time while doing the interview, and it's amazing that we can connect immediately from sharing our stories. I have a lot of commonalities with Tim and his addiction. But before getting to the conversation with Tim, after we got finished recording, I asked if there was anything else that he wanted to have included on this episode. And he mentioned a quote from FB Meyer, and this is a commentary on Romans 1 verses 31 and 32. And as many of you know, I'm not a Christian, so I'm not very familiar with this, but the quote here was amazing. And here it is. The next downward step is uncleanliness, and once men have deliberately chosen the downward path, there is nothing to stop them. They go headlong from one point to another in their descent into darkness when our hearts turn from God. Yeah, I definitely connect with that. Yeah, once I chose the path of my addiction, there was just no stopping, and it took a long time to pull out of it and find a connection with a higher power through the program of SAA, which I am truly grateful for. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to the conversation that I had with Tim R. And I do mention from the UK, not to be confused with the Tim R. who has been on the podcast several times from the Bay Area. Yeah, this was such an awesome conversation. I hope you enjoy it. Here it is. Well, yeah, this week we are honored to have Tim join us from the UK. And Tim was so I in California, and I usually record after dinner on so this is my Wednesday evening, and this is, what time is it with you?
3 a.m.
Damn. So thank you so much for doing this, staying up late and doing this recording. So I know that you had found the podcast. How did you end up finding the podcast?
It was shared. I help run the Pearly group in the UK, and we have a couple of guys from the States who join us every week, and one of them mentioned your podcast.
Awesome.
So I put it into our WhatsApp group, and we all started listening to it.
Fantastic.
Which was really good.
Yeah, it was weird. Really not knowing what the reach of the podcast was going to be. It was, we started off with this idea like 5 years ago, and to actually get it launched and out there this year, we weren't quite sure how it was going to spread across, but having different Zoom meetings and stuff around the world where they're international meetings now, so we're not just little localized meetings. So grateful to have a wider audience.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, we the Pearly meeting is actually on the ISO website now. So
nice. Well, awesome. So one of the things that I like to do is to get started by going over the what's in your three circles. It's a great way to get to know a person. And so inner, middle, and outer circles.
Right. The inner is pornography, including child porn, masturbation, objectification of women, and fantasy. My middle circle's changed. I mean, I did say not having a job, but that's changed because since March I haven't had a job. Last year, and that's something I can't control. So I don't really include that so much now. I think I'm moving that to the outer circle. The other thing is watching any 18 rated films. Or I think they're called R films in America. Yeah. So I try to avoid them because they'll usually have sexual scenes, and I really don't want to even go down that road. Not to look at any porn on any device because I know where it leads. Not to watch too much TV. Not to get bored, try and fill my time up during the day. These are all middle circle behaviours because I know if I get bored, if I don't do the things I have on the outer circle, all hell will break loose, which for me is a very serious thing because I know where it can lead. I don't have many things in my middle circle because I've been sober that much longer. Boredom is definitely one.
Yeah.
Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Usually one's halt. So they're the main ones. And my outer circle is, well, prior to COVID, walking, having a job. The walking, I used to walk miles, but since I unfortunately for me, I got COVID now. I've got long COVID, so I can't do the long walks anymore. But being out with nature, reading every morning, I start the same way. I start with prayers to my higher power, one that includes a kind of promise to my eyes not to look upon the female form with lust, objectification, euphoric recall, fantasy. I read the Life Recovery Bible. I read Answers in the Heart, Voices of Recovery, and there's about 4 other meditation books I read every morning. Well, most mornings, I wouldn't say every morning. And try to keep myself. I try to keep calm now. I don't get stressed as much as I used to. I let things go a lot easier than I used to.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's in my outer circle as well. Helping others is out in my outer circle. Volunteering as much as I can, driving, shopping, all the things that we take for granted, I take as my outer circle. And shopping for others. I mean, that to me, that's been a real blessing during the time of COVID, being able to help others. And also doing service within our group. I'm the GSR secretary, greeter, although I'm not actually at the meetings that much because it's a long way for me to travel. And generally being I'm the greeter on the Zoom group anyway, and I'm the contact on the Zoom group as well.
Yeah. It
so
sounds
I keep
like
myself pretty busy on the outer circle stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like you and I share a lot of that. I'm often a person in service. I'm a GSR from one of our groups. I'm actually the area chair for Area 40, which is the kind of south of San Francisco, Silicon Valley. We've got, I think, 18 meetings in our area. So, yeah, being able.
I mean, we think we're doing well with having 100 plus now in the UK. So we're doing well. We're catching up slowly, but we are smaller, so we got the excuse.
Yeah. Here in the Bay Area, I think we've got probably 60, depending on where we divide the lines, somewhere between 60 and 80 meetings in just the Greater Bay Area. So
I mean, in the way it's mainly most of the meetings are in London, but we have got.
Where is Purley?
Purley is South London.
Okay.
Well, it's actually part of nearer Croydon, but it's actually just inside the M25.
Nice.
If that helps people. I actually don't live there. I live in a place called Horsham. But in West Sussex, there are no groups. I did try to start one up in Horsham, but unfortunately, everywhere I tried to book, I've got other programs like the beverage program and other things going on. So and a lot of them don't want to know. They don't, as soon as you say they ask what it is, and as soon as you tell them, that's it. No, thank you.
Yeah. We lucked out at one of our meetings. We lost a spot, and it took us a long time to find a new spot. And they interviewed us and did backgrounds. And once we were able to establish one meeting there, when we wanted to do another meeting there, they said, "Yeah, fine, no problem. You guys have been great with us," and so we actually use that church for 3 different meetings now. But trying to get the ground floor and to get a spot can be kind of difficult.
Yeah, well, originally I came out of the Guildford group, and out of the Guildford group, I think there's 4 other groups that started out of that group. So you got some in Slough, Reading, us in Purley, and places close by. But there's not a lot in West Sussex. But in East Sussex, you got Brighton. I'm trying to explain it in places that you know.
Yeah.
You know, Brighton, Portsmouth, they all have groups, but not much in West Sussex.
Yeah.
So hopefully it'll expand.
Yeah. I grew up. My kindergarten year, my first year of school was in Harrogate, Yorkshire.
Yeah.
And so, I lived there for about a half a year and have barely have any memories of living there. But I've been back once or twice since.
Yeah. Well, you're a British guy then.
After hearing your circles and kind of hearing that you with the outer circle stuff that you're doing a lot of service work for SAA, I'm curious to what it is that actually got you to the rooms of SAA, kind of where it all started for you and how it progressed?
Right. It started, my dad died when I was 7. And emotionally, I didn't cope with it well. I didn't break down and cry. I came out in a rash. Then my mum went straight into doing a lot of work and I was being neglected. So I turned shoplifting. I did this to try and get attention, even if it's bad attention, at least I got attention. Didn't work. And then when I was 12, I found my first magazine, my first pornographic magazine. And that started the addiction. And I was one of these people that I would be in addiction on and off. And age of 12, I became Christian, but I still had this kind of battle within myself between God and my addiction. And they were always clashing. But I couldn't, it was like I was two people. Come 21, still in addiction, I'd fantasize. Every woman I saw, I'd fantasize. I'd look at pornography. I got married. The pornography went out the window for about 3 years because my needs were being satisfied, shall we say.
Yeah.
But then my son brought in magazines and I found them. And it was the worst thing that ever happened. I just went off. And then our family decided my wife and I decided for our kids, we'd get the internet, which turned out to be the worst thing ever for me because porn was it was everything. And the thing is, over time, my tastes, it's almost like you open a door and you go through that door and, you know, the next thing isn't good enough. It's not enough. You need more. So you go through another door and you go through another door. And when I was in 2013, I got arrested. I got a knock on the door. The way it works in England is they turn up at usually nice early time in the morning. But this first one was, what I was doing is I would download the porn, including child porn, onto a pen drive and then take it to work and look at it at work. Not an intelligent thing to do, but as you know, addiction doesn't work intelligence. And I would look at it, I would stay on and do overtime and look at these pictures I downloaded. And then I got so out of control that I actually started doing it in my work hours. Because when I was doing overtime, no one else was there. But of course, when it started creeping into my work time, what happened was we had some temporary staff there, and one of them saw what I was looking at and reported it to the police. I was arrested at work.
Oh, wow.
Led through the whole of the office and taken to the police station, where I spent must be 5 hours in the police station. At the time this was happening, my wife was at home and the house was searched by the police. They found other stuff. They took away our computer, the lot, which was lost forever. Although we got the cameras and phones back. After all this, I got a caution, and I was 3 years on the sex offenders registry. and that was it. But to me, and I went to an organisation which we have in the UK called Stop It Now, Lucy Faithfull Foundation, and they sent me on a course which was supposed to help, but I don't think they dealt with it as an addiction. They dealt it as a kind of it's wrong to do it. I knew it was wrong to do it, but I couldn't stop myself doing it. That wasn't, So they actually didn't deal with the problem of it. And I also separated from what happened was my work took me through counselling. I went through the counselling, and they moved me. They moved me to a different department, and in that department they had the intranet, so I couldn't look at anything.
Yeah.
But then they moved me back to the old department, and they gave me the internet. And guess what I did?
Yeah.
Straight away, I was on the internet, and they told me that if I ever did it again, I'd lose my job. Guess what happened? They caught me. I lost my job. I told my wife. She threw me out. And for 18 months, I lived in a caravan. Well, I lived in a caravan in a flat, but in the caravan, I had a mobile phone. Guess what I did on the mobile phone? Yep. I looked at porn again. Then I got a flat, and someone lent me a computer again. Started looking at internet porn again. I was on a course with the church I went to, but again, it didn't deal. It dealt with the spiritual side of it, but it didn't actually deal with the root cause. And I never knew the root cause. I thought, oh, this is all sorted. Didn't work. Managed to get back with my wife after 18 months. Within a year, I was on the internet again, using my phone. My wife took my phone away, so I lost complete control, which caused resentment. I then went back. I then found a way round these things. So what I do is I take
as addicts do.
And I would take the SIM card out of my work phone and put it into my phone, and then do stuff that way. I was still looking at porn. On what I'd say to my wife was, I was looking for work on a laptop and doing our finances on the laptop. Was I heck? And there was one time, I mean, this is how serious it got. There was one time my wife went away on holiday for a week, and in that whole week, I didn't sleep. I was on the internet 24/7.
Yeah. I've had a couple of trips like that, or she's away, and sleeping and eating go out the window.
Yeah. And I after the week, I had to drive up and pick her up. She was staying with my brother-in-law up in Doncaster, which is about 400 miles away. And I drove there, and I had to keep stopping because I was trying not to fall asleep. I several times nearly fell asleep at the wheel. Got to my wife, said I didn't feel well, and slept 24 hours straight.
Wow.
When I came back, she found some notes that I'd written, because I used to do this thing of going through the alphabet and writing subjects to look up.
Yeah.
Really nuts. And I did that for... She noticed some of these notes in the bin, and for some reason I hadn't got rid of them. She went absolutely ape at me. Obviously. Again, I still had this problem that I wanted to stop, but I couldn't stop. I'd been in and out of different jobs, never settling in one job. I think it was a case of if I got too close to people, I'd kind of back off. And then in 2016, I lost my job because the people at the work had found out about my previous conviction and threatened to kill me. So I had to leave that job, and that tipped me over the edge, and I started looking at child porn again. I swore I'd never do it ever again. This time I had a knock on the door from the police on the 14th of July 2016. I remember that day. This time, because it was the second time, I lost everything. I was thrown out of the house. I had to sleep on my mum's settee. I was taken to court. It went to High Court. And this time I got a year suspended for 2, 10 years on sex offenders registry, and a sexual harm prevention order that runs out when I fall down dead. Which to most people sounds really restrictive, but actually for me, it was the best thing ever because it gives me boundaries. It's something I've never had in my life. It's boundaries.
Yeah. Oh.
So I was thrown out of the house on the 29th of July. Hang on, 30 days, no, 30th July. I went back to the church that I'd left, and everyone just accepted me, which I found really I couldn't cope with because I couldn't forgive myself, but they could forgive me. And then on the 1st of August 2016, I went to my first SAA meeting. I walked into the room, an absolute wreck. I'd already tried to commit suicide. I was under what they call in this country crisis, where it's the one before being sent to an institution. What they do is they come and visit you. And I was dealing with complete mental breakdown because what happened in the second time that I was caught was where the two things had been separate all my life, my higher power and my addiction, they clashed. Absolutely wrecked my life. I had a complete and utter mental breakdown. So when I came into the rooms, I was a mess, a complete and utter mess. I knew I had to do something. In the past, I had been to SAA, but I said it wasn't for me. I didn't have that much of a problem. So I went to this meeting. There were 35 people in the room, and I was in a state, an absolute mess. And that was the start of my journey. That first meeting, I got a sponsor, and I started the 12 steps. I was homeless for about 9 months, living on my mum's sofa for 9 months. And in those 9 months, I was doing the steps. I went to High Court, and as I said, I got that. That happened in the November. The original court case was in November. I actually got sentenced in 2017. And now the police monitor my phone and everything. It took me 2.5 years before I could ever get a smartphone again. The police monitor my smartphone, so I don't have any locks on it because I know if I look at anything dodgy, they will pick it up.
They'll come right down.
They'll come right down and visit me. I mean, they get to visit me twice a year unannounced and 2 times announced. It hasn't happened in the last 18 months. Can't think why. I know I'm going all over the place, but it's the way I do it in my head. So I came into the rooms, and it took me 2.5 years to do all 12 steps. I definitely struggled with step 1 was hard. Step 4 was an absolute killer for me. Step 5 was a relief to actually share with someone the whole of my acting out and what I'd done. was absolutely so. It just relieved me so much. 6, 7, still struggled a bit with. I mean, I still every day I think I have to. My shortcomings. I mean, we're never free of our shortcomings.
Yeah.
Resentment is one of my hardest ones. Resentment and letting go and letting God. Normally, it takes about 3 days because I have to go through it in my head, and then eventually I'll say, "No, can't do it anymore. Give it to you."
Yeah.
And then step 8. I had a massive list of people who I wanted to make amends to, and my sponsor moved it down from about, I think I had about 20 people on the list, and he knocked it right down to about 5. And most of those I did within 3 months. However, one I couldn't do, which was with my daughter, and that took a lot of me letting go and letting God. And the other one that I found really difficult was me. Making amends to me and forgiving myself for what I'd done.
How did you go about doing that? Because I'm currently on my 3rd round through the steps and working on step 9, and the 8th step was the first. This is the first time I put myself down as someone that I need to make amends with, and I am kind of clueless. So I'm curious.
What happened with me was actually someone said to me, I can't remember if it was a fellow in the meetings or someone outside, but they said to me, "Your God forgives you. So who are you? Are you above your higher power that you cannot forgive yourself? That you cannot make amends to yourself?" And that really hit home. It still took me another 3 or 4 weeks to do it.
Yeah.
It really hit home that I'm not higher than my higher power. And if my higher power forgives me, I should be able to forgive myself.
Wow.
Which was a massive breakthrough for me. 10, 11, 12 I found quite easy. I mean, 12 I do every day now.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was on about, the rules are different within different groups in the UK. When I'd done most of my step 9, I started taking on sponsies.
Yeah.
In the UK, it's normally either step 4 that we take on sponsies, because usually by the time they've done 1, you're on 5 or 6. But some groups say you have to do all 12 and then take on sponsies. It started with 3 sponsies. And now it did go up at the beginning of COVID. It was up to 12. It's now dropped down to about 7 or 8, because some people, you can be their sponsor, but you can't do the program for them.
Yeah, exactly.
If they're not willing to do the program, you can't do anything about it. So after 2.5 years, as I say, I got a smartphone, and I have been completely sober from my middle circles. I mean, people are shocked. Even the police, when they have visited me, they said, "What? You haven't masturbated for 5 years?" I'm single. I had to get a divorce. It was a case of, not that our marriage was perfect, because there was violence in the marriage, not from my side, but from her side. But that doesn't justify what I did. It just compounded it. It just made things worse. And eventually, I paid for the divorce. That actually came through in February of this year. So I'm divorced now. I'm single, and I'm actually happy single, but I want to be celibate and single. But that's my choice. Not everyone wants to do that, but that's my choice. And then some people can have a loving relationship outside of marriage, but for me, that I don't think I can go down that road because, well, not at the moment anyway. I never say never because that's not up to me. That's up to my higher power. But someone actually asked me. They said to me, "What was it?" But if you meet someone, will you get together with them? And I said, well, I have to be looking first. And since I'm not looking, I don't think I'll find anyone. It's just that. I mean, some people manage to keep their marriages going. I mean, my wife, I think, had had enough by the time. It'd be my second time of being caught. I mean, I was completely powerless in the addiction, but I have to say my life is so much better. After 9 months or so, I actually got my own flat. Normally, when you get arrested in this country and you go through all the court proceedings, you have to do community service, they call it, where you have to spend time doing work. Fortunately for me, I had to have a brand new knee, so I couldn't do it. There was nothing I could do. Up until March of last year, I was working. I'd had a pretty steady job. And then we were all put on furlough. I was on furlough. I was paid, which I didn't expect, because I did what's known as a 0 hours contract because it suited me. It means I could work when I wanted to work. And they stopped paying me in October. I didn't expect any money, but they stopped paying me in October. I still get government help, so that's okay. And then come this April, they said they no longer needed me. So I'm unemployed again. But it's funny, if it'd been my first year in being in recovery, this whole time through COVID and having long COVID and struggling with the thing, the isolation and being, although the Zoom meetings were okay, I was isolated in other ways. I couldn't go out, obviously. If that had happened in my first year, I would have failed. But because it's happened this time, I actually have found myself very grounded, very attached to my higher power, more so than I've ever done before. And also, I'm in a better place than I was when I first came into the rooms. When I came into the rooms, I was a mess. But I have to say, recovery does work. For me, it's been the greatest thing since sliced bread, I have to say. It's really changed my life. I feel so much freer. I don't have to lie about anything. I don't have to remember the lies that I've told so I can remember to lie better. They're compounded lies.
Yeah.
So, I lied to my wife actually looking at her because she actually once questioned me and said, have you been looking at porn? And I looked at her directly and said, no. And when I did my step 9, I actually said that. That was one of the things that I admitted to, that, I'd lied to her face. I mean, she understood it as an addiction, but she'd had enough, which I understand. My daughter, it was really funny. I did a share because in all this time of COVID and everything, I've been on Zoom a lot and I do a lot of shares. I love doing shares because I hope that through me sharing, that people who are outside the rooms or inside the rooms will see positivity and see how much things have changed. And that's just positive. What was I saying? I've lost my thought.
With your daughter?
With my daughter, yeah. So I did that share on the Thursday, saying that I hadn't made amends to my daughter because she wasn't ready to do the amends. So I had to wait, which I struggled with. I struggled with around the Christmas time and birthdays and things like that. I really struggled with, not being able to contact her. And the day after I did that share, I got a text from her. Can we meet up and do our step 9?
Wow.
And it was amazing because I did my step 9 with her, and she's in the beverage program and 2 other programs, and she understood. So we worked the step 9s together. I mean, we aren't in a relationship now. I don't think at this time we will be, but the slate is clean. That's the greatest thing that's happened. With me and my wife, it'd never be reconciled, but with my daughter, that was the most important one because I'd known her since I wasn't her actual father, but I knew her from the age of 18 months. So I consider myself her father.
Yeah, definitely.
And, that was one of the most freeing things because now I'm clean of all my past. I will always be an addict. I know that. I always announce myself as a recovering addict. I don't say I am an addict because actually I think that would just reinforce the fact that I was an addict.
Yeah.
I say I'm a recovering addict, but I'll always be a recovering addict.
Yeah, I've heard recently, read in the ISO's booklet, or newsletter, the Outer Circle. Some people are saying the distinction now between recovering addict and recovered addict. And
I will never be a recovered addict.
Yeah.
I will never be a recovered addict. I will always have that temptation. And I have to really be on my game not to. It is so easy. I mean, the second time I slipped into addiction by looking at, I think I was looking at women in catalogues in underwear, and that set me off again. So I know it's that tight. I really have to watch it. But now my whole attitude has changed. I mean, sounds like the promise is my whole attitude.
Yeah.
But it has. Now I look at people as people. I don't see them as objects. I just see them as people, which is so much freeing. It's so much freer. I mean, I just love this new life. I absolutely love it. I mean, that's why I love sharing. I love sharing my story because it shows the absolute desperation and complete and utter out of control that I had. I lied to people. I did things behind people's back. I wasted so much time. I've been clean now for 5 years, 1 month, but I was in addiction over 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nothing in comparison. If I live until, 99, I may be getting close to the time in recovery that I was in addiction. So I never take it for granted. I always treat one day at a time. I try not. This is a change as well. I have a diary on my phone, and I will book things in weeks away and then forget about them because it doesn't matter. Today is the next 24 hours is all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the most important to me. So I live for today, which I never thought I'd ever say. People, it's like a lady that I was due to take to the doctors yesterday, your day, yesterday.
Yeah.
She actually said, "Oh, I've been pinged," which means I can't go to the hospital today. Oh, I'm really bad. I let you down. And I just let her know, no problem. It's not a problem at all. You know, for me, it's just so I can do something else today. You know, it just doesn't worry me. Things like that used to stress me out, something rotten. And now they don't. I don't get wound up about anything.
Yeah, I've found that, you know, working the steps, working on resentments and character defects, and learning to let go. That, you know, prior to ever doing those steps, I had a hard time letting go of some of that shit, and then you know, after doing the steps and you know, years and years, I don't look at it, you know, when you're talking about living for today, you know, just being in program for so many years, and you know, newcomers asking, it's like, isn't this, a problem for you? Don't you get pissed off? I'm just like, sometimes, but you know, I got the steps there. I found ways to make my life easier and to let it go.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I came to the conclusion I must say, in the last 18 months or so, that, you know, me worrying about tomorrow won't change it. Me worrying about anything won't change it. It'll still be the same, so why worry about it? Because I used to be a terrible worrier. I would worry about not worrying. And it's funny when I see my mum now, she still worries about not worrying. And it's like, why? Why would you do that to yourself? Yeah.
When you're talking about, you know, the promises coming true, one of the coming episodes we'll be doing will be on the 9th step promises, but the fear of economic insecurity was so with me for years, and just having to watch like every dollar, every penny, just really freaked out about finances. Once I was able to let that fear go and just realize that me worrying about it's not going to help, that, you know, I can put faith in my higher power that things are going to be okay. It became a lot easier. And those types of things, once we became, my wife and I, when we became financially stable, that worrying that you were talking about, we were, after like 5 years of living day to day worrying about stuff, and now that the comfort level came and we're feeling okay, that worry kicks in. But why? Everything's okay today. And it's like one of those things that she and I will occasionally just pick up on. I'm not worrying about anything. Why am I not worried about anything? I need to worry about worrying, and just the craziness that comes with that. It's
I mean,
maddening.
I don't know how it works in America, but you get help from the government over here. I earn enough. I don't have to worry about bills. They will get paid. Of course, I try to save money, but I never save money. I always have some in the bank, but I never save money. So, I tend not to worry about it. There's no point in me worrying about it. As long as I can pay the bills, it doesn't really matter what happens. And I can eat. Beans on toast do me. I just love this program. I was brought, when I came into the rooms, I use a book called Gentle Path. And I get all my sponsies to use the Gentle Path. And I think the best thing in it that I found, apart from doing step 4, because you do negative, positive, positive, and always finish with a positive, was something called the Personal Craziness Index. And I found that so helpful because I knew where my trouble spots were. I mean, it's not so much now, but it was like around October, which was my wife's birthday, Christmas, because sometimes I feel lonely at Christmas and I realise what I miss. Although I have connections with my sister now that I didn't have, because my wife and my sister never liked each other, so that calls. I still love what my sister says. If you ever get back with your wife, I will disown you. So I think, you can't choose. You can choose your friends and not your family. So, yeah, I don't get to see that side of the family because I lost so many years. But that doesn't worry me. I remember a couple of years ago at Christmas, a friend of mine was going through a hard time in recovery. And I said, why don't you come over and stay with me for Christmas? And that was wonderful. It really brightened his Christmas and brightened my Christmas. So I always see, and it used to be around May time when it was my daughter's birthday, and it was all those little triggers, and April when it was our anniversary. But now this year it's like April, I don't have to worry about the anniversary anymore. I don't have to worry about Christmas anymore. I mean, I do this in the hope that things might change with me and the daughter, but on her birthday and at Christmas, I always buy her a present. And I've put it to one side. So if we are ever reconciled, I can say, do you want these presents? But, if it doesn't happen, I'll have loads of presents for someone when I die. But, I outside the program, and before I came into recovery, I had no close friends. Since I've come into recovery, I've got over 160 numbers on my phone of people I can ring or can ring me. I'm always available 24/7, and I've said that to all my sponsees, to anyone who I give the number, that I'm here 24/7, and I mean it. And I have had phone calls at 2:00 in the morning and 1:00 in the morning with someone struggling. I don't mind that. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to share my hope, my strength and hope to others, to hope that they themselves will get sober.
Yeah.
Did you want me to say any more?
No, I was going to ask, if there were things that, there was one note that I wanted to bring up, but if there were,
no, bring up one note.
Yeah. when you were talking about sponsorship, that is something that we often have the back and forths on. When is it okay to pick up sponsees? And yeah, there is no hard and fast rule. I've gone to a number of workshops. My sponsor held me until step 9, that I had to do a 9th step amends before I was allowed to pick up sponsees. Like you mentioned, steps 4 and 5 is where some people will start picking up sponsees, and then others when all 12 steps are done. So I have not seen any specific way things happen. I've had one of my sponsees actually picked up a couple guys when he was really early in the steps, and it kept him motivated. His sponsees were coming up right behind him, and it's like, yeah, one of my sponsees is only one step behind me. I need to keep moving.
Yeah, so, I mean, we do it with step 4. Well, I do it with my sponsees at step 4 because there are more and more people coming in.
Yeah.
And they need sponsors. And if you don't get in there quick, you're going to lose those people. I think that's just my opinion. And the other way I see it, every time I take a sponsee through the 12 steps, I'm doing the 12 steps again, because they'll say something and I'll go, oh, I never thought about that. I'll write that down, you know, and that helps me. It helps me in my recovery as well as helping them in theirs. I'm a very gentle sponsor, I have to say. I do not put any time limits or anything on my sponsees. My attitude is, if you want to do the steps, you'll do the steps. There's no point in me saying you have to do this and that and this and that, and if you don't do this, it won't work, because I don't think that actually. Some people need that in a sponsor, but my sponsees, I treat them like, if you want the program, you're going to have to do everything to do it. But you can't, you know, I'm not going to say, oh, I didn't have time last week. Yeah, and it's not my problem. It's your problem, not mine, because at the end of the day, it's your program. I'm very much like that with my sponsees. I'm quite, I encourage them. I don't push them. I encourage them to do it, because I think my first sponsor was like, you have to go to 3 meetings a week. If you don't go to 3 meetings a week, you'll fail. And that actually caused me to get, it was, my reaction to that was, why do I have to do that? I don't want to do that. I'm not going to. It actually caused
a bit of authority.
Yeah. So eventually, after some time, I had to let him go. And my new sponsor, I contact him maybe once or twice a month. And, you know, we'll have a good chat. Or I'll go to a meeting where I know he's going to be there. That's the greatest thing that we've had recently, was we've been able to open up the rooms again. A lot of our meetings are hybrid because they have to be, because we have. You were saying you were around in Harrogate. We've got. Let's see. We're based in London. We have 2. One in Bristol, one in Bath, one in Kent, one in Suffolk, one in Norfolk, one in Yorkshire, and 2 in America. So we can't come off Zoom now. And I think Zoom's been the greatest thing since sliced bread myself.
I first became introduced to Zoom in about 2018, and wasn't really sure about it. The first one that I was on, I only dialed in, and then the next one I kept my video off. But you know, once the pandemic hit, and it's like, shit, we've got this, you know, this infrastructure. We've got a couple of Zoom meetings going, and it's working there. So let's take this model and open it up. And, you know, so we got, you know, for our meetings here in the Bay Area, we got all of our meetings assigned a meeting ID. And we had to buy a few accounts to overcome overlapping meetings. But we wanted, there were some meetings that stayed pretty local, where only local people were going to that meeting, and other meetings, you know, we posted with the ISO, and they became international meetings. And it is just amazing, just having people from Australia, New Zealand, India, the US, Canada, the UK, Scandinavia, Africa. it all in one meeting, because the time zones, it is morning for some people, it's evening for some people, it's lunchtime for other people. It's been an amazing gift to do that. And people that we probably would not have met otherwise. Just because
No, I mean, we found that. I mean, we had a gentleman from Saudi Arabia. We were like, what's going on here? So, we have people, as you say, from all over the world now. We had a gentleman from India, someone from Pakistan. I think the furthest we've had is Saudi Arabia, Canada. I'm not sure which is furthest, but so it's become international. I mean, the people we get from America are amazing because we're a mixed group. It's really great to see so many people, male or female, come to our groups, and they're both welcome. We're never we're not exclusive. We're open to anyone who wants to come along, and they're always welcome. As I say, I'm the phone number, the email contact, and everything. So I just love doing that, because I think the more people who can get into recovery, the better.
Yeah,
and it's becoming worse and worse, especially since lockdown in this country.
Yeah,
it's really, and some people who are going through the legal process in this country, it's so helpful to let them know that they're not alone. I think that's the most important thing, because you feel like you're alone. At the beginning of the journey, you feel completely alone.
Yep.
And that's what, 150 plus phone numbers is wonderful.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And we have a WhatsApp group. There was a WhatsApp group started by one of the gentlemen who left Guildford. Guildford got their own WhatsApp group. We got our own. Ours is called Pearly Gates. Just seems right.
That's awesome.
And there was one of the gentlemen from another group set up a share finder and sponsor finder group, which I think is just amazing, because it means we can get shares from all over the world, all over the country doing shares. I mean, I'm lucky because I've been unemployed. I mean, it's such a blessing in some ways. I've done shares in Liverpool, Birmingham, Edinburgh. Edinburgh. Yeah. Bath, Bristol. I've done them anyway. Anyone ever asks, can you do a share? Yeah, I'll do a share, because I think it's I can remember one person in a group at the end of the meeting saying, thank you. You've given me the courage to do shares. You've given me the courage to know that I'm not alone, and that it works if you work it. Terrible thing, but it just does.
Yeah. Well, awesome. As we're closing up, is there anything else you wanted to share? I think we covered quite a bit.
Quite a bit. I mean, I'd just like to thank you for the invite. I got it from one of you, from someone in your country, and I'm so pleased that I've been able to share, and I don't mind you using my name, because I don't care anymore. It doesn't worry me. I love sharing. If I could share every day of my life, I would.
Well, awesome. I appreciate you staying up super late to be able to record with us here on the west coast of the U.S. So brilliant. And I thank you for being such an awesome guest, Tim. And
you're welcome.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to connect on a meeting sometime, and I would
You're
love.
welcome to come to Pearly every Tuesday.
Rightio. Yeah, I'll have to find the link and do the time switch and figure it out.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll see you at the pearly gates.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Cheers.
See you, Tim.
Bye.
And once again, I really thank Tim for staying up so late, 3 a.m, to have this conversation with me. I coincidentally had another conversation with someone from the UK, and that episode will be coming up in a few weeks. And in that conversation, Megan and I found a time slot that worked for the both of us. So we found time on the weekend to record morning here on the Pacific and evening in the UK. So it worked out just fine. Normally I do weekday evening recordings, but I was so grateful that we were able to find time to do that. So listening back to this conversation that I had with Tim, in next week's episode, there was a moment where I credited, I've been working on step 9 for quite a while, and I credited the workshop that I went to at the Serenity on the Sound retreat for forgiveness to self in step 9. And it was actually something that Tim said here in this conversation. So I recorded the conversation with Tim a few days before the Serenity on the Sound retreat. So I got it a little bit confused. So in next week's episode, be sure to make a mental note of that. One of the things I did want to highlight here at the end was a book that was mentioned called A Gentle Path Through the 12 Steps. And although this is not official SAA literature, it's written by Dr. Patrick Carnes. Many of you know is a leading person in the realms of sex addiction. It also comes up with the conversation that I had with Megan, which will be in a few weeks. I'll put the title and everything in the show notes if you are interested in checking it out. I actually have it, but I did not use this for going through my steps. But there are so many different things in here, lots of different questions, charts, looking at behavior, for the first step, behaviors from different ages, family tree of addiction, all sorts of great information. And I heard there's a lot of really great stuff about step 4. So anyway, I will be putting that into the show notes. And before closing out this episode, I wanted to touch on some feedback and reviews that we have for the podcast. I've been meaning to add this one for the past few weeks, and it comes really fitting on this episode. And I will be keeping the name anonymous here. Hey and hi from across the pond. I thought I would drop you a line and say how much I'm enjoying your podcast. Us sex addicts know all too well the shame and secretive nature of our addiction and the danger it presents to all aspects of our lives. To this, it is so refreshing to be able to listen to you talk with other addicts, and by doing so helps to break that taboo. Today I was listening to the episode where you discussed switching from face-to-face on to Zoom and the hassles that caused. For me, Zoom was quite literally a lifesaver as I joined the fellowship just as lockdown was happening here in the UK in March of last year. I continue to attend Zoom meetings and due to my job will find face-to-face meeting difficult. So I hope and wish that the Zoom option continues. In the meantime, keep up the most excellent work with your podcast, and who knows, it might ensure someone on my side of the Atlantic to start one. Warm regards, Jay. And yeah, definitely. If you need any help starting a podcast, I would be more than welcome. And I've mentioned in the past few weeks, if you are interested in recording interviews like this and sending them to me, I'd be happy to post them here on this podcast. Going back to the line in here about Zoom meetings and face-to-face, my home meeting just started meeting face-to-face again, and we decided instead of doing the hybrid model, we separated the Zoom meeting from the face-to-face. And so on weeks where I'm able to, I'll make it to the face-to-face, and if I'm unable to, having that option to be able to jump onto Zoom is super helpful. I've done this a lot with the noon meetings during the week. We have 3 face-to-face noon meetings in Santa Clara currently, and 6 Zoom meetings per week, Sunday through Friday. We're still working on trying to get the 7th day, the Saturday, up and running. But yeah, having the options, I think the miracle of Zoom is it is going to open up a lot of new meetings. As meetings are going back face-to-face, they're deciding to keep the Zoom link open and registering that with the ISO. So a lot more meetings should start showing up. I also wanted to read a couple of reviews that I got on iTunes, and if anyone knows how to get to some of the other reviews, if there are other places that do reviews, please let me know, and you can email me at jason@sexaddictsrecoverypod.com. My primary use is via Apple, so I know how to get to these. And so here are a few of the reviews that we've gotten over the past month or so. This comes in from Daniel F. Thank you for your service. So grateful to add an SAA-inspired podcast to my recovery. I've been in SAA for 2.5 years and enjoy so many options for my recovery. This is such a blessing and timely addition. The music shared in your most recent was excellent. This is from Daniel in Sacramento. Yeah, and I can't remember exactly which episode that is. I know in next week's episode, we're going to be talking about headlong, and I referenced that in episode 25, which was feeling overwhelmed. Another review that we just received this is from Because You Are Worth It. Thanks for your service. Getting through a 90 and 90 and having this podcast is helping me so much in between meetings. I'm really grateful that people are able to use this podcast as another tool in their recovery. So if you want to add a rating and review in iTunes or Apple Podcasts, this helps us become visible to people looking for the podcast. So far we've gotten 21 5-star ratings. That's super awesome. You can go there and rate and review the podcast. Also, if you wish to leave feedback for the podcast, you can email us at feedback@sexaddictsrecoverypod.com. And I'm going to get to editing a few of the other conversations that I've had recently and be uploading those soon. I'm grateful for you listening in this week. And as always, keep coming back. The views and opinions contained in the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the Bay Area Intergroup or the ISO of SAA.